on to agricultural research and development. Now, since the ninth five-year plan, which was in 1997 to 2002, efforts have been made to enhance R&D spending to 1% of the agricultural GDP by end of each plan period. This target, however, has not been fulfilled till date due to tight fiscal situation. Spending on agricultural R&D in India still hovers around 0.3% of the agricultural GDP, which is about 8 crore rupees in 2019-20, while most other countries spend more than 1%. Now let's look at the agriculture research spend of certain the basic countries and USA. Now India spends around 0.3% of its agricultural GDP, whereas China spends 0.62%, USA on the other hand spends 1.2%, and Brazil spends 1.82%, whereas South Africa spends 3.06%. Now about 80% of the R&D funding goes to paying salaries and other expenditures, leaving little to conduct comprehensive mission mode research ventures. Such minuscule levels of investment in R&D impedes the ability of science and technology research to tackle multiple challenges that include yield gaps, changing consumer preferences, declining resources capacity, the geopolitical situation, and the adverse impact of climate change leading to farm distress. Excuse me. Now, apart from funding, there are other challenges in agricultural research and development as well. For example, Indian agricultural research has become cereal centric, and there is limited focus on pulses, oilseeds, and horticulture. Also, much of the research focuses on improving quantitative and not qualitative yield. Now, agricultural education. Agricultural education in India is mostly confined to higher educational institutions. Currently, there are three central agricultural universities, around 65 state agricultural universities, and four deemed to be universities in India, which focus on imparting formal education in field of agriculture. Now, agricultural education holds great significance in India due to the following reasons. It will encourage more research and development in emerging fields like nanotechnology, genetic engineering, biotechnology, etc. Technical education will empower the farmers by providing them knowledge regarding sustainable agricultural practices like organic farming, zero budget natural farming, micro irrigation, accurate use of chemical fertilizers, etc. Now, this will help them minimize environmental damage, ensure food security in future, and adapt and mitigate for climate change. Now, agricultural education will impart the farmers with necessary skills required in food processing industries, marketing of produce, etc. More young students will be encouraged to pursue agriculture as favorable and remunerative profession. Development of analytical professional skills and knowledge in areas such as intellectual property rights, WTO sanitary and phytosanitary measures, etc. will boost agricultural exports in changing globalized scenario. Now, agro entrepreneurship will get a boost, especially in rural areas, making villages self sufficient. Now, agricultural education will make the farmers more aware of marketing system, functioning of supply chain, contract farming, etc., and reduce the information asymmetry in the agricultural sector. However, the field of agricultural education is plagued with several problems like shortage of competent faculty, difficulty in attracting talented rural and urban youth due to low returns and limited career opportunities, inadequate funding support, outdated curriculum, and lack of significant efforts by the state governments. Further, Niti Aayog notes that there have been a proliferation of self-financed private agricultural colleges without sufficient facilities, proper labs, or infrastructure. Now, considering the above issues, government has launched several initiatives for agricultural educations like ARYA, which is attracting and retaining youth in agriculture, Student Ready, that is Rural Entrepreneurship Awareness Development Yojana, NAHEP, which is National Agricultural Higher Education Project. Now, ARYA scheme aims to attract and empower youth in rural areas to take up various agriculture, elite, and service sector enterprises for sustainable income and gainful employment through skill development. Student Ready provides job based on entrepreneurship training to students. NAHIP is designed to strengthen the natural agricultural system in India with an overall objective to provide more relevant and high quality education to agricultural university students. Now, some of the steps which can be further taken to promote agricultural education include updating the course curriculum to keep pace with the changing agricultural scenarios and developing technology, training the academic staff, incorporating basic agricultural subjects at pre-high school and higher secondary level with purpose of imparting first-hand knowledge on agriculture, providing students guidance and counseling to prepare them for the job market, and initiating an effective accreditation system for monitoring the quality of state agricultural universities. Also, in its past report, Economic Survey has recommended that instead of creating more institutions, we should focus on the quality of research and infrastructure in existing agricultural institutions. Also, ICAR should be given UGC like powers to better regulate the private agricultural colleges. Moving on to GM crops, a genetically modified or transgenic crop is a plant that has novel combinations of genetic material obtained through the use of modern biotechnology, mainly using recombinant DNA, that is rDNA technology. Now, India currently has commercialized only one GM crop, that is BT cotton, with CRY1AC gene, that is Bolgard 1. Now, India is at the fourth position in hectareage under GM crops. As per official data for 2018-19 Kharif crop season, 88.27% of the 122.38 lakh hectares cultivation is under BT cotton. So this shows that BT cotton is, or in the sense, cotton itself is a Kharif crop of all varieties. Now, global area of biotech crops, USA leads the chart at 69.5 in 2012 and 66.8 in 2010, whereas in India, the only crop that is grown in the BT sector uh, is cotton, whereas in USA we see that there is maize, soybean, cotton, sugar beet, papaya, squash, etc. Also, the area under biotech crop in India is 10.3, which is in million hectares. Now, moving on to other GM crops, BT brinjal, it was approved for cultivation by India's Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee, GIAC, in October 2009, but stiff opposition led to indefinite moratorium on its cultivation in February 2010. Activists raised issues like food safety and dependence of farmers on MNCs for seeds from the single firm that makes them due to terminal nature of the seeds. Now, GM mustard is a genetically modified variant of mustard developed by Delhi University's Center for Genetic Manipulation of Crop Plants. It has the genes that allow the plant cross pollination and hybridization. Now, GIAC has recommended cultivation of GM mustard, taking it closer to becoming India's first GM crop. Now, those opposing GM mustard are against the genetic modification technology in agriculture over food safety issues. Anti GM activists say that claims that the variant DMH11 has a 30% higher yields are false. Also, regular seeds can be reused, are cheap, and widely available. GM seeds cannot be reused and must be bought. They contain the so-called terminator technology, meaning they have been genetically modified so that resulting crops do not produce viable seeds of their own. Now, moving on to the policy framework for GM crops, Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee, that is GIAC, is a statutory body constituted under the rules for the manufacture, use, import, export, and storage of hazardous microorganisms, genetically engineered organisms or cells of 1989 notification under the Environment Protection Act of 1986. Now, since 1989, GIAC under the Environment Ministry has been responsible for approving commercial cultivation of GM crops as well as the manufacture, import, and selling of processed foods made from GM ingredients. Now, GM import requires approval of two law two laws, that is the Environment Protection Act of 1986 and the Food Safety and Standards Act of 2006. Now, Codex Alimentarius Guidelines, that is Codex, is a joint FAO WHO intergovernmental body responsible for developing the standards, code of practice, guidelines, and recommendations that constitute the Codex Alimentarius, meaning the International Food Code. Codex developed principles for human health risk analysis of GM foods in 2003. Now, GM crop offers benefits like they are less labor intensive and hence they are cost efficient. GM crops are better tolerant to different harsh climatic conditions like drought, salinity, etc. GM crops have an increased level of protection against pests and diseases. Commercial cultivation of GM crop is vital for our food security needs. For example, BT cotton greatly contributed to a significant increase in farm income and India's transformation from a crop importer to an exporter of cotton. Now, reduced use of pesticides and herbicides in case of GM crops improves soil fertility. GM crops have improved processing characteristics, leading to reduced wastage and lower food costs to the consumers. However, there are certain concerns with GM crop as well. Now, anti GM activists claim that GM crops are unfit for consumption and create food safety issues. GM crops have terminator technology, leading to MNCs monopolizing markets. There are concerns that introduction of GM crops may lead to reduction of biodiversity in such areas. It has been reported that more and more pests have evolved resistance to toxins produced by GM crops. For example, pink bollworm has become a potent threat to GM cotton. Now, there is a fear that farmers are preferring GM crops over traditional varieties due to higher productivity and better returns, leading to practice of monoculture. Regulatory failure on part of government to monitor cultivation of GM crops have led to several cases of cultivation of illegal GM crops like GM soybean. In order to solve the above challenges, some of the steps which can be taken are as follows. There is a need for stringent regulation in the sector to ensure cultivation and sale of environmentally safe agro products. The FSI must identify all GM products being sold in the market and prosecute companies and traders responsibly. There should be a liability clause that if something goes wrong, the liability should be fixed statutorily. All the grievances of farmers and public must be resolved before allowing disputed GM crops like GM mustard. Transparent procedures must be followed by putting the safety documents online so that trust can be built among the public. Government should come up with national policy on GM crop to define the exact areas where GM is required by the country and where government will encourage public and private investment in GM technology. Now, moving on to nanotechnology in agriculture. Nanotechnologies are the design, characterization, production, and application of structures, devices, and systems by controlling shape and size on the nanometer scale. Now, use of nanotechnology in agriculture involves the following: nanofertilizers and nanopesticides increase productivity without decontamination of soils and water. Protection against several insects, pests, microbial disease through products like nanogels. Now, nanotechnology can be used as sensors for monitoring soil quality of agricultural feeds and maintain the health of agricultural plants. Nanotechnology has the perspective to improve agriculture and food industry with novel nanotools for controlling the rapid disease diagnostic, enhancing the capacity of plants to absorb nutrients, among other. In the food processing industry, antimicrobial nanoemulsions are used for applications in decontamination of food equipments, packaging of food, nano-based antigen detecting biosensors for identification of pathogen contamination. Now, nanotechnology has the potential to help in achieving sustainable agriculture and doubling farmers' income. However, there are certain concerns regarding the use of nanotechnology in agriculture. Concerns of cytotoxin and genotoxic effects of cellular nanomaterials on nanoagri products. Risk of nanoparticles toxicity is higher in plants due to their minuscule size that can easily translocate within plant body. Lack of knowledge and development method for risk and life cycle assessment of nanotechnology in agriculture. It reduces bacterial diversity in the soil, insufficient economic interest, regulatory issues, public opinion hamper, hamper the effective use of nanotechnology in agriculture. In response to the above concerns, government released guidelines for evaluation of nanotechnology based agri inputs and food products. Objectives of the guideline include to encourage research and development in the sector, to help regulators assess the quality and safety of nano based agriculture and food products, to encourage Indian innovators and industries to develop new nano based products and formulations. The guidelines apply to nano agri input products, NIPE, and nano agri products and nano composites, sensors made from nanomaterials that require direct contact with crops, food, and feed for data acquisition. They do not apply to conventional products or formulations with incidental presence of nanomaterial. Now, the National Initiative on Climate Resilient Agriculture, that is NICRA. Now, ICR has launched NICRA during 2010-11 with an outlay of 350 crores. The initiative will primarily enhance the resilience of Indian agriculture, covering crops, livestock, and fisheries. The initiative will involve strategic research on adaptation and mitigation. Accordingly, sponsored and critical research grants will be provided to fill critical research gaps. Moving on to system of rice intensification, that is SRI. SRI is a combination of several practices. Those include changes in nursery management, time of transplanting, water, and weed management. It emphasizes altering of certain agronomic particles of practices of the conventional way of rice cultivation. All these new practices are together known as system of rice intensification. SRI is not a fixed package of technical specification but a system of production with four major components, which is soil fertility management, planting method, weed control, and irrigation management. Rice yield increase with less water and with reduction in chemical inputs. Now, Sustainable Sugarcane Initiative SSI is an innovative set of agronomic practices that involve less seed, raising seeds in a nursery, and following new planting methods with wider spacing, better water and nutrient management to increase cane yield significantly. The SSI method of sugarcane cultivation was evolved from the principles of more with less, followed in the SRI and introduced in India by WWF ICRI SAT collaborative project in 2009. The SSI method can increase sugarcane yields by at least 20% with 30% less water and 25% reduction in chemical inputs. Now, moving on to National Innovation on Climate Resilient Agriculture, that is NICRA. ICR has launched NICRA during 2010-11 with an outlay of 350 crores. The initiative will primarily enhance the resilience of Indian agriculture, covering crops, livestock, and fisheries. The initiative will involve strategic research on adaptation and mitigation. Accordingly, sponsored and critical research grants will be provided to fill the critical research gaps. Now, moving on to Krishi Kalyan Abhiyan. Krishi Kalyan Abhiyan was started by the Agriculture Ministry in two phases. Phase 1 from 1st June of 2018 till 15th of August of 2018. Phase 2 from 2nd of October of 2018 to 25th of December 2018. It aims to aid, assist, and advise farmers on how to improve their farming techniques. Also, farmers are trained in beekeeping, mushroom cultivation, kitchen gardening. Further advice on vaccination, artificial insemination, etc. will also be given. Now, Krishi Vigyan Kendras is an agricultural extension center in India, and the name means Farm Science Center. The first Krishi Vigyan Kendra was established in 1974 in Pondicherry, and since then, Krishi Vigyan Kendras have been established in all states and the number continues to grow. Usually associated with local agricultural universities, these centers serve as ultimate link between the Indian Council of Research of Agricultural Research, that is ICAR, and farmers, and aims to apply agricultural research in practical, localized settings. Some of the responsibilities of Krishi Vigyan Kendras include on-farm testing, frontline demonstration, capacity building, multi-sector support, and advisory services. Now, agricultural R&D is a crucial determinant of agricultural productivity and production, and therefore food prices and poverty. It is therefore important that we shift our focus towards the same. Budgetary allocation should explicitly recognize the expenditure on agricultural R&D as one of the prime areas for both our environmental and livelihood sustainability. There is no dearth of innovations and palliatives to address farm distress. It is time the agriculture sector has a long-term strategy focusing on food system within each agroclimatic region per se instead of generalized food production strategy. The cornerstone of success in bringing about a more vibrant agriculture sector lies in upping agricultural R&D spending to at least 1% of the agricultural GDP, thereby charting a trajectory of higher and inclusive growth and making the national plan of doubling farmers' income in the near future possible. That'll be it.